In this lesson, we're going to talk about bichordal diatonic progressions. And in essence, that's what we've been doing. But we were restricting ourselves in the previous 5 lessons with adjacent triads. We dealt with the C and the D minor because we were in the key of C. So the C and the D minor triads, which are 1 and 2. The D minor and the E minor triads, which are 2 and 3. E minor and F, which are 3 and 4. F and G, which are 4 and 5. And G and A minor, which are 5 and 6. But I want you to be aware of this concept of the big picture. Look at diagram 7. You have a chart that shows each of the 6 diatonic triads, and in each case there are 5 other triads you could go to. Now that makes sense because we've excluded the 7 triad, that B diminished, as a stable chord on its own. If you want to study on your own, go right ahead, but I didn't think it was warranting enough study in this lesson. Let's look at the first group where you have C to D minor, C to E minor, C to F, C to G, C to A minor. You want to explore all of those. Now we've already covered C to D minor, right? But then you would want to explore C to E minor with all 7 possible bass notes underneath. Okay, now do you see how big this is? It's a vine that just keeps growing and growing. It is finite though, so don't think that there's no end to this. And then the same thing would apply for each of these categories, where you have a diatonic triad as a home bass chord, and then you go to another diatonic triad, and it isn't necessarily a neighbor chord. Very quickly, I'm going to go through this. Let's go over, for example, to the D minor section. You had D minor and E minor. We already did that, where you had... There it is with the D bass, with the E bass, the F bass, the G bass, the A bass, the B bass, the C bass. Okay, now I did that quickly, but the notes are right there. You know, you can figure this out. It's not that hard. What if I choose to play not just D minor and E minor, but I play D minor and F? Now, a certain phenomenon is going to occur when you skip a chord. Because your chords are built in thirds, there's not a lot of difference between a D minor chord and an F chord. That's because they share 2 tones. Any 2 triads that are a third apart, which means every other chord out of the scale, will have 2 common tones. So then you would want to go through the same thing where you played a D bass for the D minor and then a D bass for the F. Well, in that case, what do you get? It's just a D minor 7. So that's just an extension of the chord when you use a chord that's a third higher. But then if we move to the next one, we go D minor, G over D. Now that's a common progression, right? Well, let's listen to it over each of the bass notes. That's over the E bass, over the F bass, over the G bass, over the A bass, over the B bass, over the C bass. Did you hear all those sounds? Okay, you should be grinning. You shouldn't be crying. You should be grinning and saying, man, I am not going to run out of ideas just out of the major scale. I can create jams all day. I can write tunes. I can really get a handle on this. And look what the payoff is. As you practice these, even if you don't have them mastered, just exposing yourself to them is going to help you tremendously on your ear training. You're going to be able to follow and hear tunes. Then most tunes are diatonic, right? Pop stuff and everything are diatonic, non-blues based stuff. And you're going to be able to hear what you used to think were really avant-garde chords. You'll say, oh no, that's just an inversion. It's just a slash chord. And then when we talk about in some future courses about how to solo over this stuff, you're going to be amazed how what seemed complex before gets broken down into these building blocks of triads over bass notes, and it's going to help you a whole lot. Okay, I am not going to go through and give you any more examples here because this particular lesson is huge, and I don't want to bore you. You can do this at your own speed. At this point, you should see how to use your diagrams. You should see your C scale over the neck. You should see your triads. And so I encourage you to try to come up with some of these progressions where you're not just using the adjacent diatonic triads like we did in the 5 previous lessons, where you're mixing up the different chords with the different bass notes.